Hello, welcome to Inspiring Voices, a podcast series with influential women leaders. This is an initiative under our EY Women Fast Forward program. EY Women Fast Forward helps forge an integrated global ecosystem of entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, and next generation talent to close the gender gap and nurture an inclusive environment. Welcome to our podcast today. I'm Sonu Iyer, a partner at EY India. In this series, we celebrate the remarkable journeys of distinguished women leaders. Their stories are not just tales of success, but beacons that illuminate the path for other aspiring women. Join us on this empowering voyage as we share these narratives to inspire and mentor. It is my honor and privilege to host Mercedes Soria, a super inspiring lady who stands tall in the world of STEM. Her story and her journey thus far is super inspirational. Mercedes is the Executive Vice President and Chief Intelligence Officer at Knightscope, Inc., a robotics security company where she focuses on machine learning and artificial intelligence. With a BS and MS degree in software engineering, she is also an alumni of Harvard Business School, Emory University, and MIT. She has been named the most influential woman in Silicon Valley and is part of the US Department's State Tech Women Program, where she coaches women in STEM fields from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia about technology and entrepreneurship. Mercedes, thank you very much for joining us today. It is indeed my privilege and honor to host you in our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
So Mercedes, let me begin by asking, your personal journey, as I mentioned, is super inspirational. Can you share that story with us, where it all started, what drew you to the tech world, and of course, along this journey, the obstacles that you overcome to be that tall woman in this world of STEM?
Sure. So as you can tell, I have an accent. So I'm not from the United States. I was born in South America, actually. And I studied there. I got my first bachelor's in computer science in Ecuador. And then I was lucky enough to win a scholarship to go to the United States to get a bachelor's degree in computer science. And then I stayed for a master's degree with an emphasis in artificial intelligence. So I went with a scholarship, and then about 6 months into the 2-year program, I was told by university that there had been a falling out between the university in Ecuador and the university in the United States. So I had a choice. I could stay in the US, but I had to cover all my costs, or I could go back to Ecuador, the country which is mainly agricultural. And there's really not that many opportunities, not just for women in technology, but for technology overall. We are definitely not known for tech companies in our country or for new discoveries, things like that. We're more of an agriculture, flowers, bananas, that type of country. So the choice for me was clear. I was lucky to have a mother who supported me 100% in what I wanted to do. And she asked me, she knew that I had wanted to be an engineer. And she asked me, she said, what do you want to do? And I told her, I would like to stay. And she told me, then you have to do whatever you have to do to stay there. And one of the things that some of the people who come from other countries might not know is that in the United States, if you are a student who is not local to where the university is, whether you live in a different state or whether you live in a different country, you have to pay 3 times the amount of tuition that a local student has to pay. So it was a significant amount of money that I had to start covering. But one of the advantages of having a student visa when you go to the United States is that you can actually work at the university that you're in. But that's the only place where you can work. So I found 3 different jobs at my university. I worked all those 3 jobs, and I had a full class schedule every single day because I wanted to graduate as soon as that I could possibly do it. So instead of doing it in 2 years, I did it in 18 months. Because I didn't want to continue to pay the tuition and all those expenses. And then when I graduated, you would think it would have been a really easy win to find a job with my qualifications, but it really wasn't. I applied to 100 different positions. I got 3 calls for phone interviews, 1 call for an on-site interview, and that was the only job I was offered. And I had a master's in computer science and AI, and I was offered a job as a webmaster at the time, which is somebody who maintained web pages. And it was a lot of writing HTML code and putting pretty pictures in the pages. So, but that was the only job I was offered, so I took it. And from then on, I started taking projects on my own. I took it upon myself to take my company, which was GMI, from being a company that wasn't very technical in terms of the systems that were used to run the company. They were still running on computers that had black backgrounds and green letters. And I introduced them to what the web was and how accounting systems could be on the web, how ERP systems could be on the web. And to their credit, they basically gave me an open book. They said, "Go hire the people that you need, and go put us online. The job is yours." So I learned a lot in the job, and when I was done with that, I moved over to Deloitte, and I spent about 10 years there working on global systems that go from HR to ERP to ethics and compliance and to different types of systems before I started my entrepreneurial career. And I worked in 3 startups. 2 of those failed, and my current company is the third startup. I started in Silicon Valley 11 years ago. We decided to solve the problem of crime in the United States with technology, and we were able to go public 2 years ago on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange. So that's a little bit about my story. That's the longer version of my story.
Wow, Mercedes, that's a mind-blowing, amazing story. I think I was just trying to think of the attributes. You've got the personal sacrifices, the aspiration, the curiosity, the innovation, the willingness to work hard, the hustle, the entrepreneurial abilities, choosing startups to work with after your journey started with the Big Four, and how you really turned all these obstacles into opportunities. So when we talk about the fact that anyone who's aspiring to grow in their field, their chosen field, and maybe we can talk about STEM and technology itself, all of these attributes are a given. But beyond that, I think one of the other thing that stands out about you is you've never given up on focusing on the fact that gender equality, gender parity is very, very critical. And every organization you worked with, you set that yourself as a personal goal that you're going to do as much as possible to bring up as many women on the other side as you can. So I want to be able to ask you, in your experience, and you've been doing a lot of work in this space, what really, is the secret sauce, if I may call that, for supporting women in tech? Is it the mentorship? Is it the education? Is it the sponsorship? What really, or all of that, is needed to bring increase the number of women in technology?
So there's a lot of companies that are doing a lot, especially here in EY. I was at Deloitte. It's not a lack of programs to bring women in STEM. It's not a lack of companies trying to hire more women. It's not a lack of opportunities. It's the fact that a lot of the times we as women expect the company to bring us along or the company to do something for us. And what I've been trying to preach for several years is that we as women need to own our careers. I wasn't part of any diversity and inclusion program when I got my job. I did it on my own. I was matched with a mentor to Deloitte's credit, but it didn't work out. And that's when I realized that, well, I need to do it for myself and I need to own my career and where I want to get. And it's my responsibility to make sure that my dreams become true as no one else's. And that's what I try to preach to all the women that I mentor. And that's what I've tried to also do while I've been here in India with the local STEM students. I know it's not going to be done probably in the next 5 years. Changing minds and changing cultures takes a long time. I might not see the change while I'm alive. It might be someone else, but we have to start telling our women that they have to own their careers. They have the power. It's for them to take it.
Thank you, Mercedes, for that. Now, maybe turning to your day job, you are at the forefront of innovation in artificial intelligence, and we see AI written all over. Every aspect of our jobs today is, AI is creating an opportunity as well as some disruption. So, what are you most excited about? I mean, you're on the other side of the table. You are the trailblazer as far as AI and innovation is concerned. So, what trends are you, most excited about, and what does it really mean when we look at it from a perspective of our workforce, today and of the future?
Yeah, the change that I'm the most excited about is the democratization of technology. So for years and years and years, it's always been about, is it the Python language? Is it machine learning? Is it AI? What is the technology that we want to use? And a lot of the times, entrepreneurs and even students find the technology first, and then they try to find a problem to solve with that technology. And what generative AI is doing is eliminating the fact that you have to worry about what technology to use. You have to now focus on what problem am I trying to solve, because generative AI can write your application for you. You don't have to be technical. Anyone can start a company. Anyone can learn how to use it. So it's going to be a competition of ideas in the world of tomorrow. And that to me is very exciting, because all the people who feel like they're left behind because they were not in STEM now have the opportunity to create companies, the opportunity to solve problems because of what we've been able to achieve with AI.
So that's a big one, a level playing field. This
Yeah,
no distinction between the techies and the non-techies. If you can think,
yeah.
come up with bright ideas, you're going to change the world.
The
So
best
then
idea wins. The best products are the winners. Exactly. Yeah.
super. I also want to understand, given your experience in entrepreneurship as well as, being responsible for carving out and implementing business strategies, as how do you envision artificial intelligence and robotics transforming the way businesses operate in the next decade? If decade is too long a time, maybe next couple of years, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, we actually have to talk in decades, because especially in the robotics industry, so AI solves a lot of problems, but it doesn't have any control over the physical world. And that's where robotics comes in. Because if you want to change something in the physical world, you're going to need a robot. So the exciting part is that all of the example, one of those examples is Knightscope, my company. So all of the boring jobs like a security guard, they spend most of their day walking around and pretty much doing nothing, scanning QR codes with their phones, right? And then 10% of the time they need to actually do something like arrest someone or try to stop a sexual predator, things like that. So all those jobs that could be automated, the 90% of that security guard's job, which is walking around and looking around and not doing much, that's what we have automated with AI and robotics. So what do those people who used to do that job do now? They have an even more interesting job. For example, you have to maintain those robots. You have to learn how to use the robots. You have to learn the robot sends information to a cloud solution. So you have to learn how to use the web. You have to learn how to interact with information systems. So those jobs, human jobs, are becoming of a higher level. Humans are having to step up a bit and learn more technologies and just become better for it. Their lives become more interesting and the jobs become more fulfilling. And that's what we're trying to do with robotics and AI in a lot of the companies that are in the US. And surprisingly enough, I've been talking to people here in India. There's some efforts going on that are kind of similar to the ones that we're doing in the United States.
Yes, Mercedes, I was reading one of your statements. I am a crime fighter and I develop technology that saves people's lives. A very powerful indeed statement from you. And the fact of the work that you're doing with Knightscope is also very interesting. And as you said, combining robotic intelligence and machine learning for usage in physical space is also groundbreaking stuff that's happening. Okay. I want to be able to understand from you, again, keeping the thing going on artificial intelligence. Ethics in AI is a very hot topic. Everybody is talking about, you know, should we be more careful in how we use artificial intelligence? and the whole role, the governance, the monitoring that needs to come in this whole space. What's your take on that?
So technology, whether it's AI, whether it's robotics or anything else, is inherently not good or bad. It's neutral. So how do we use it as humans is what makes it good or bad. So having guardrails that govern the way that the technology is used, the way it's implemented, how transparent it is, how do we train those models, making sure there's no biases, making sure that we're using the right model to the right problem. I think all of that is very important. And as long as we have governments that are interested in working on things like that, like in the US government, this is starting to happen already, which is, okay, what do we have to do to make sure that the technology that we're building is human-centered? Making sure that the ethics are there, that it's not going to have the ability to harm humans, especially when you start talking about dealing with the physical world. Those things become important. And as I learned yesterday with an interview I did here in India, actually, the United Nations already has a draft of those rules and regulations that they would like to put in place and put in front of countries so they can see, they can guide how we develop technology. And I'm excited to see it. It will be distributed to countries soon, is what I was told. So there's several efforts, local efforts in the States and also global efforts in the United Nations. I believe everybody sees the importance of having those regulations in place to make sure that everybody is in the same level playing field and to make sure that we use the technology for the betterment of humanity opposed to for something different.
Maybe, Mercedes, if you can talk a bit more on this last bit. How do we use technology, AI in particular, for betterment of humankind? And more specifically, how do we help women grow and claim their rightful position in the world demographics when it comes to opportunities?
So if you want to talk about women specifically, I will go back to the point of now it's not about are you a technology person or are you not a technology person? It's about what problem do you want to solve in the world? And I believe women are particularly positioned to solve problems that will impact not just one section of the world, but they're responsible for the whole families. So that will give more opportunities to solving problems that might be overlooked otherwise. And they don't have to be in tech, they don't have to be in STEM. Any woman who has the curiosity to solve a problem, has a problem that she's dealing with on a daily basis, and she's entrepreneurial. I think the main characteristic for future leadership is going to be being entrepreneurial, whether you are starting your own business or whether you're in a large company like Deloitte or EY. It's going to be about how entrepreneurial you are and what kind of ideas you can come up with, and then apply whatever technology, whether it's AI or not, whatever best fits the problem that you're trying to solve. And it might not be AI, it might be something else, but the world of ideas is what's going to win in the future of tomorrow.
Now turning to your current India tour. So you've been, meeting the academia, you've been meeting people, you've been meeting women groups. So I want to know what's your impression of India's evolving landscape and in general, and then maybe also in STEM in particular.
So I believe that there's one thing that I have learned here that I was not prepared for was how kind people are in India to everyone that I've seen. It was a complete surprise to me, and I was pleasantly surprised. Another thing that I have learned is that there's a lot of effort in India that is taking place to try to bring more women into STEM. And that's when my message is, it's not about more programs. The programs are there. It's not about how do we create the opportunities. The opportunities are there. It's about how do we make our women own their own careers and their own lives so they can go after the goals that they have and not be derailed by either families or cultural norms and things like that, so they can achieve the dreams the potential that they actually have.
I want to be able to also understand how you think India is contributing to the global STEM narrative, and what unique strengths are you seeing in India in terms of the businesses you met up with? What do you think would be really helpful? The startup culture, the kind of organizations you interacted with?
So one thing that India is contributing a lot, which I wasn't aware of, but I'm very aware of now, that maybe some parts of the world might not be aware, is the diversity of thought, the diversity of people, the diversity of ideas that you have here in India, and the particular problems that are particular to India. For example, the fact that you have so many languages. So because you have so many languages, you have to think about those things when you're solving a problem. If I try to reach this type of people, what language should I use? If I try to reach this other part of people, what language should I use? So AI can help on that a lot, because you could write code once or create an application once, and with a large language model, all of it can be translated and make a lot of sense, which all machine learning models are very clunky, especially when translation takes place. If you got to Google Translate, it's not ideal. But with large language models now, that gap has been made a lot smaller. So I see that as opportunities for more ideas, for more exchanges. I believe people who go from India to other countries can bring a wealth of knowledge. There's a lot of technical schools here. There's a lot of people I met who are in high school, and they're already working on machine learning languages. They know ChatGPT. They've been using it on a daily basis. I thought I was going to come teach them how to use it, but they told me they're already using it. So I believe there's a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I believe that the talent in India is just about as good as the talent that we have in the United States.
Mercedes, final question. Multiple
Yeah.
accolades, multiple recognitions. You got the Abbey Award. You've been the keynote speaker in Grace Hopper. And recognition, most influential woman in the Silicon Valley. And so, what's the next frontier for you?
Well, one thing that I would like to do is achieve the goal that we set for Knightscope when we started the company. And our goal is to make the United States the safest country in the world. So we are in 17 states, and the United States has 50 states. So when we get to that goal in which we have robots in 50 states and we're able to cut crime, and our goal is to cut it by 30 or 50%, so it could be the safest country in the world, that's what's next for me. And I am single-mindedly focused on that goal. And only after we achieve that goal, I will think of what comes next. And believe me, in my brain, there's always something that comes next.
Super. Mercedes, it's been an absolute honor to have hosted you today. Many lessons for all of our listeners, and more particularly, if I were to think of it, own your own career, dream big, everything is possible. The opportunity is a level playing field now. There is no distinction between techies and non-techies. It is someone who has the most creative ideas, who has the ability to get ahead. Curiosity and entrepreneurial traits are what is going to be the leadership trait of the next decade. I think those very, very valuable nuggets of wisdom, much appreciated. And thank you once again for being part of our podcast series. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you as well. It has been a pleasure.
Many thanks to our listeners. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope you found the podcast today engaging and interesting and inspirational. Your engagement is truly valued. Don't miss out on our next episodes, wherein we will continue to spotlight extraordinary women, trailblazers who are not just leading the way, but are also eager to uplift and spark ambition in others. Until our paths cross again, strive for excellence, lead with determination, and become the embodiment of the change you desire.